Hello, my friends. Welcome to our Wednesday afternoon Bible study. It is Wednesday, the 3rd of March. It's the wonderful, deceptive month of March that, you know, teases you and flirts with you and then hits you with a cold blast. Well, it's going to be 60 this afternoon. And so I need to get finished with this little Bible study so I can go out in the sunshine. So it is now the getting ready to start the third Sunday of Lent this coming Thursday, Sunday, and we're glad that you're with us. We're done with the sixth chapter. More questions come out of the sixth chapter than answers, I'm afraid. I hope you're enjoying this study, and we're going to begin chapter 7 now. Um, Let us pray. Lord, be with us, be with our nation, be with your people, be with wherever they may be with those who are sick and needy today, those who grieve, those who are lonely, those who are hungry and cold, those who feel left behind and who feel oppressed. May your church be agents of your healing. We ask it in the name of Jesus Christ, who is the living word. Amen. Ooh, excuse me. Excuse me. We finished chapter 6, which was about the Jesus, the bread of life. And uh, we have I hope we can get through the whole 7th chapter, and we will if I don't go off on some rabbit trail, which, as you know, is a very large possibility. A lot of this chapter is just a debate among the people who were observing Jesus, debate as to his messiahship, as to his authenticity as a prophet and as the Messiah. And so we'll speak to that as we can, but we won't spend too much time on it. I look forward, by the way, to hearing from you your positive or negative critiques of what I do here. If I spend too much time in the weeds, just tell me. I don't know because I get no feedback. I can't see you. I can't see you going to sleep or the look on your body language. All I can do is just go ahead. And I may not be emphasizing the things that you would like to emphasize. I may not be answering the questions you want answered. Um, and again, I would encourage you to read the text before we get to it, just so you'll be familiar with it and that we won't be hitting this stuff cold. After this, Jesus went about in Galilee, which is north and west of Judea. He did not wish to go about in Judea, which is where Jerusalem is, because the Jews were looking for an opportunity to kill him. Uh, and they were wanting to kill him. Why? Because they thought he was a blasphemer. Uh, on the one hand, they thought he was a blasphemer. That is, he was claiming divinity for himself. He was claiming a position in God's economy that was not his to claim. And that's a very valid criticism. If blasphemy is a terrible sin, when someone claims to be doing God's will, claims to be fulfilling God's purposes, but is not, that's blasphemy. When someone claims to be God That's blasphemy. There is no one that is God, only one. God is one, is a tenet, a principal tenet, the principal tenet of Judaism. So when a person comes along and says, the things that Jesus has said, and claims the things that Jesus has claimed, that the one who sent him, that is the Father, tells him everything to do, the things that we read in the last chapter, well, that's blasphemy. Imagine being a pious Jew, a Pharisee or a Sadducee, spent your life studying the Torah and interpretations of the Torah, and tried your best to know what the God of Israel wants for you and what it means to be faithful. And then some fella comes out of Galilee and he says, everything that I have directly from the Father. He gives it to me directly, and I'm giving it to you. And so they say, well, this just blasphemy. So they wanted to kill him for that reason. They also wanted to kill him because he was turning their world upside down. There's potential that he would turn their world upside down. If people listened to him, that he was the Messiah, then their system was kaput, right? Because it's not that Jesus wanted their system to be kaput, but he criticized their system. He ate with sinners, and he didn't make the distinctions that that the Jewish leaders did. You see, what Jewish leaders bet the ranch on their distinctiveness, their identity as distinct, their exclusivity, uh, obedience to the law, obedience to the Torah, and to the laws that had developed out of the Torah. And so when Jesus comes along and says and does the things Jesus does, he's undercutting their authority, and the people were coming to him because of the signs and the wonders that he did, right? And so they wanted to get rid of him. And then a third reason is because it's not, you don't see it so much in this gospel until much later, but that the chief priests and the Pharisees of Judaism were worried about rebellion and insurrection. That's a word that we've heard a lot of in the last, since January, the insurrection on January the 6th at the Capitol. But also, we remember hearing in the Iraq War about insurgents doing this, and insurgents are people that are rear action. That these are people revolutionaries, and Rome didn't want any revolutionaries around, and Jesus was seen as a disruptive insurgent force, and the powers that be in Judean Judaism were worried that the Romans would come and that they would put down any insurgency and rebellion, and that because of this guy, this Jesus, who that many were calling the Messiah, who would be the king of the Jews, which of course the Romans would not put up with, that the Romans would have to clamp down, and they didn't want that to happen. Okay, so that's why they were seeking to kill him. Long way around the bush to get to that. The Jews were looking for an opportunity to kill him. Verse 2. Now the Jewish festival of the booths was near. Now the festival of booths is a festival that occurs in the September, in the fall of the year, and it is a time when they go out, when pious Jews, observant Jews, to this day, will make a shanty, a shed out of natural materials, and will live outside or take their meals outside in this shanty to remind them of the wilderness wanderings of the people of Israel. There was a tradition, and still is a tradition in the Bible and in Judaism, that the time of the wandering in the wilderness was the time when the Jews were most identified as the people of God, because they were utterly dependent upon God in the wilderness, and it was there that they learned to be God's people. And of course, they didn't learn the lesson very well any more than we do. But that was when they were dependent upon God for their daily bread, and they knew it, and so they were uh, most closely related to God in the days in which, and God to them in the days in which they were wandering in the wilderness. So the festival of the booths was a time to remember that. You went outside and you stayed in the shanty outside, and you ate unleavened bread, and during that time in these booths, in these shanties, you and your children were reminded of the heritage of Israel. You see, and so his brothers, that is Jesus' brothers, said to him, "Leave here and go to Judea, so that your disciples may also see the works you are doing. For no one wants to be widely known wants to be widely known. No one who wants to be widely known acts in secret." So what they're saying is everybody's going to Judea, to Jerusalem for the festival of the booths. This time of the year, this festival, when people celebrate their heritage in the wilderness. And so go there, and Jesus, you go there. If you keep doing these signs and wonders here in Galilee, nobody's going to know about you. It's like, if I want to make a speech and have people, get a lot of press, I don't go to Newcastle and stand on the corner and say my piece. I call a press conference in downtown Roanoke. I don't go to Newcastle or to Czech, Virginia to do it. And so they're saying you go to Jerusalem, go to the center of Judaism, and that way, when you do your signs and wonders, when you turn the water into wine, when you heal somebody, when you feed 5,000 with uh, uh, a couple of loaves and fishes, why more people are gonna get to know you. Um, no one who wants to be widely known acts in secret. Well, sure. I mean, that's common sense, right? If you do these things, show yourself to the world. For even his brothers, for not even his brothers believed in him. Jesus said to them, "My time is not yet come, but your time is always here." Hmm. The world cannot hate you, but it hates me, because I testify against it that its works are evil. Go to the festival yourselves. I'm not going to this festival, for my time is not yet fully come. After saying this, he remained in Galilee. That seems like a kind of harsh thing for him to say, but what he's saying is that they don't get it yet. They don't understand who he is, what he's doing here, and what his mission is. And so they want him to be a public figure. They want him to be a king. They want him to be popular. Jesus is not interested in that. Jesus is interested solely in what? In doing the will of the one who sent him. It's not a popularity contest like it is among churches and preachers. Uh, it's not how many members you've got. It's not how full the sanctuary is, although those are great things. Um, it is whether or not you're doing the will of him who sent you. It is whether or not you're being faithful to the gospel that is important. And the gospel, according to Jesus, the gospel that Jesus was living by was the gospel of Isaiah 53, of the suffering servant, and his desire, the gospel of the first chapter of John. His desire is to do the will of the one who sent him, and 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 he would be glorified. That is, he would gain his attention in the world on Calvary and Easter, in the Passion, and that's come. So this way, says, my time's not yet come. My time's going to come when they kill me and when I rise. That's when my time is. Right now, I'm not interested in making the scene. I'm not interested in making a big splash. Um, your time is always here. If you're looking for the approval of people, which he's accusing them of doing, if you're looking for people's approval, now's your time. Go, do it. But it's not my time because I'm looking for the approval of the one who sent me. Go to the festival then. I'm not going to this festival because my time has not yet fully come. His time is come. He is the living word. He is the bread of life. He is doing the Father's will. So in that sense, his time has come. But when his revealing of to the world of who he is yet to come. After the but verse 10 but after his brothers had gone to the festival, it's an odd text. Then he also went, not publicly, but as it were in secret. I do not understand that verse. I have looked, I've tried to understand it, and maybe you do, and you can enlighten me. But what is this? Jesus changes his mind and goes to the festival, but not publicly. He didn't want to make that splash, but in secret. The Jews were looking for him at the festival and saying, "Where is he?" And there was considerable complaining about him among the crowds. While some were saying he's a good man, others were saying, no, he's a deceiver. He is deceiving the crowd, yet no one would speak openly about him for fear of the Jews. So there's this undercurrent of people talking about Jesus and his ministry and what it meant and whether or not he was a good guy, possibly who he said he was, whether he was for the people or against the people, whether he's for Rome or against Rome, whether he was a prophet or wasn't a prophet. All these things happening at once. Some believed and some didn't, but no one really knew what he was about, and no one spoke openly about him for fear of the Jews, for fear of getting, collared. So where did you see him? Where is he now? You and being associated with him. They didn't want to be associated with him. And about the middle of the festival, Jesus went up into the temple and began to teach. Well, for one that doesn't want to make a splash and who said his time wasn't yet, he certainly appears to be willing to make a splash. So he goes to the temple and begins to teach. And the Jews were astonished at it, saying, "How does this man have such learning when he has never been taught?" In other words, he hasn't sat under the rabbis, the rabbinical teaching. How does he know so much about the scriptures and about God and about what it is to be a faithful person? And then Jesus answered them, "My teaching is not mine." In other words, I didn't come up with this myself. In other words, it's not something that I absorbed from the rabbis. My teaching is not mine, but his who sent me. In other words, everything I know comes from the Father. Anyone who resolves to do the will of God will know whether the teaching is from God or whether I am speaking on my own. Stop. So Jesus says right there that others can discern whether or not his teaching is true and authoritative by their hearts. If they're seeking the will of God, if they're seeking to do God's will, then there's something about Jesus that rings true. Who was it? J.B. Phillips. J.B. Phillips, who was a great scholar and wrote what I find to be the most understandable translation of the New Testament, the Phillips Bible. I love reading J.B. Phillips' translation of the New Testament. And J.B. Phillips wrote a book called, his famous book was Your God is Too Small. But another book that he wrote that I really like is The Ring of Truth. And The Ring of Truth essentially says just this, that if you are seeking God, that the words of Jesus ring true to you. The teachings of Jesus ring true to you. And that's what Jesus is saying here. That's what John is saying, what John is saying through Jesus. It says, "My teaching is not mine, but his who sent me. Anyone who resolves to do the will of God will know whether the teaching is from God or whether I am speaking on my own." Is there something that rings of truth beyond just superficial truth. Those who speak on their own, and how do you know? How do you know? Not to get too political here, but when you hear a politician talking, are they seeking their own good or somebody else's? Or a preacher or anybody else? Those who speak on their own seek their own glory. Are they doing what they're doing for themselves or are they doing it for somebody else? Are they saying what they're saying because of what they want, because they want public acclaim, because they want fame, fortune, power, position? They want to be well thought of, or or are they seeking the glory of the one who sent him, or of God? And there is nothing false in him. So there's this division between, and once again, you've heard me say this, one of the things that is so difficult for me in the New Testament is that it's either one or the other. One or the other. Either you're seeking the glory of the one of God, or you're seeking your own. In my experience, I find that and I've had a lot of experience in this speaking, and it's my speaking on my own behalf or on God's, and I know good and well that it's both. I want to be doing God's will. I want to be speaking God's truth. But on the other hand, I know there's selfishness involved in it. And I don't know, and I've never been able, and I don't think this side of Jordan I'm ever going to get past that. I don't think anybody else does either. And anybody who claims so is probably lying. There's always self-interest in everything. Presbyterians call that, all of a sudden my mind has gone blank. The pervasiveness of sin, total depravity. That it's not that everything we do is totally depraved, that everything we do is bad and evil. It is that everything we do, even the good things we do, is tainted with self-interest, okay? With interest that is not God's interest, okay? And that's everything. And that's what it's true for you, it's true for me, it's true for everybody. Wouldn't it be great if it weren't that way? Jesus, on the other hand, is always saying it's either one or the other, and it's just confounding to me. And it is for him, I believe. It is for him. He said, those who speak on their own seek their own glory, but the one who seeks the glory of him who sent him, speaking of himself, is true, and there is nothing false in him. I want you to know that no one will ever say of me that there is nothing false in me, if they know me. And I wish it were true. I wish there were absolutely nothing false in me, but there is. And if nothing else, my own personal misunderstanding of myself and misunderstanding of others. But not so for Jesus. Jesus continues to argue and to discuss things with these same people. Did not Moses give you the law? Speaking, I guess, to the Pharisees here. Yet none of you keeps the law. Not keeps it completely. Not keeps the spirit of the law. Why are you looking for an opportunity to kill me? And the crowd answered, you have a demon who's trying to kill you. And Jesus answered them, I performed one work and all of you are astonished. And what he's saying here is that, okay, that he did something on the Sabbath, right? And they're upset with him. Moses gave you circumcision, and you circumcise a man on the Sabbath. If a man receives circumcision on the Sabbath, in order that the law of Moses may not be broken, are you angry with me because I healed a man's whole body on the Sabbath? Do not judge by appearances, but judge with right judgment. All that is to say that his opponents are hypocrites. That they want they're opposed to him because he doesn't pretend or make any pretense of obeying the law of Moses as they understand it. Jesus is saying, well, you don't obey the law of Moses. And let me tell you about the law of Moses. The law of Moses requires circumcision of all male uh, Jews, people of the covenant, men of the covenant. He says, if it's okay for you by the law to circumcise, that is to cut the foreskin off of a man or a child on the Sabbath, but because that's obeying the law of Moses. But in doing so, you're doing work on the Sabbath by your own understanding of the law. Okay, you're doing work, so you're obeying one law and disobeying another one. So if it's okay for you to cut the foreskin off of a little boy on the Sabbath, why is it not okay for me to heal a whole person on the Sabbath? Pretty good logic. Do not judge by appearances, but judge with right judgment or with wisdom, of course. So what he's saying is don't be such hypocrites. Now some of the people of Jerusalem were saying, is not this the man whom they are trying to kill? And here he is speaking openly, but they say nothing to him. Can it be that the authorities really know that this is the Messiah? So right here, John is giving us an insight into what the crowds, what the populace is, Jewish populace, Judean Jewish populace is thinking about Jesus. Some of them are wondering why the authorities haven't arrested him. And others are wondering, well, maybe the reason why they haven't arrested him is because they really believe in him. And so they're yada, 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 back and forth. Uh, uh, Yet we know where this man is from. In other words, we know that he's from Nazareth, which is in Galilee. But when the Messiah comes, no one will know where he's from. So how can he be the Messiah? And Jesus listening to all this stuff, and finally, this is an odd text because it seems like Jesus just plain gets frustrated, and he says, and he says, then Jesus cried out as he was teaching in the temple. Can you imagine trying to teach in the temple and all these people, all this murmuring? Who is this guy? Is he the right? It's kind of funny to me. I know it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be a study in human nature and how depraved we are. But it's funny. All these people murmuring, like in the old westerns when they decide they're going to go lynch somebody who's in the who's in the who the sheriff has in the jail. And everybody's murmuring. Well, that's what this is kind of like. And so they're all murmuring, wondering who he is, and and coming up with all these cockamamie reasons why he is the Messiah or why he isn't the Messiah. And then Jesus cried out as he was teaching in the temple, "You know me, and you know where I am from. I have not come on my own, but the one who sent me is true, and you do not know him." All right. What that means is, yes, I am from Nazareth, and yes, you know who I am, and yes, you know where I came from. But you know what? I haven't come here on my own. The one who sent me is true, that is God, and you don't know him. If you knew him, then you would know me. That's a recurring theme in John. If you knew him, then you would know me. If you knew anything about God, then you would know me, which is one reason why I want to be a Christian. I'm not a very good one, but why I want to be a Christian. Because I like to think that the teachings of Jesus reflect what God is like. That the life and the teachings of Jesus reflect what the truth of God is. I just think it's wonderful that God loves us so much that he gave himself for us. that its self-sacrificial love is at the very heart of the nature of God and what God intends for us. I think it's just wonderful. Um, and now, verse 29, we're going to close here. But the one who sent me is true, and you do not know him. I know him because I am from him, and he sent me. I may be from Nazareth, but I'm really from him, and he sent me. And then they tried to arrest him. Why? Because he was blaspheming. But no one laid hands on him. Why not? Because his hour had not yet come. Yet many in the crowd believed in him and were saying, when the Messiah comes, will he do more signs than this man has done? There we go. Right back to this. They don't see the character and the nature and the truth of the man. They're only looking for signs. Okay, we'll begin with verse 32, chapter 7, next week. Okay? Thank you very much. God be with you, and may you have a blessed Lent. Bye-bye now.